Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Aqibatun lil mustaqim. Wala rubwana ila ala dalimin. As-salatu was-salam ala rasulina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa ajma'in. Rahmakat Allah alaikum wa ailatukum. How you doing, my dear brothers and sisters? And let me give you my proper facilitations. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah katu lil ikhwani ikhwati fi din. Assalamu ala mari tabahuda lil ikhwani ikhwati fi Afrika, Europa, wa America, Caribbean, wa kulli makan. Halin wa salim bikum. Okay, my dear brothers and sisters, I'm going to cover a topic that we all heard about, and in some ways we're all tired of it as well. And we seem to have no relief from the misguidance and the ruthlessness of the three groups that I'm about to talk about. Their reign of terror has caused the Muslim world a lot of anguish. And it's caused Muslims alike to have to defend their position on the world stage in light of these three groups and other groups as well. If you read my caption, I'm saying these groups are being used to suppress the Fulani community. I'll get into that and why I've said that. The Boko Haram, the Ansaru, and the Bandits are causing a lot of havoc in Nigeria, as you know. And Nigeria, as part of the Sahel, is in a dire situation because of all of the security breakdowns that it's been experiencing for years now. And the three groups in particular, two of them say that they're devout Muslims. The other one, they have Muslims among them, the bandits, but generally speaking, they don't hold to any particular tradition at all. Their aim is revenge and to get financial means by way of kidnapping and so forth and so on. As you know, you understand, you know, you've heard this before. So I'm going to get into some of the dynamics to get to the heart of the matter. But my immediate message to the brothers that are sitting in these three groups and the brothers who've been disaffected by their actions and the ethnic strife that this has caused. You heard me say for weeks that we should always return back to the Quran and the Sunnah. And then the third option as well is to go back to look to see how our ancestral brothers handled business. This is important because for us to progress and for us to eliminate the threats from the likes of Boko Haram, the Ansaru, well, the Bandits, and other similar groups like them, is we have to go back to the Quran and we have to go back to the Sunnah and we have to go back to the past and look and see how our ancestral brothers from all the Fulani sultanates that reigned from 1300s to the 1800s, how did our brother Deluxe, Imam Deluxe, Usman Den Fodio, how he handled such a thing? How did Samari Toure handle these types of individuals and groups? The answers are there. How did the Messina group, okay, the Sultanates of the Messina, which ran almost 400 years on and off, how did they handle, because they had situations like this, how did they handle these offshoot groups like Boko Haram and Ansaru and the bandits, as we know them in the Sharia law as Muharaba. In Arabic language, you know them as Muharaba. But brothers and sisters, as an outsider, because I don't live in Nigeria, but I'm an outsider looking in. And a lot of times the outsider who's looking in, especially a guided Muslim, can look inside of something that you cannot see because you are surrounded by it. And that person outside may get a better picture of what's happening around you and can report it in some terms better than you can because you're amidst of it. You know that old adage that says, they tell doctors, you know, the old adage about a doctor says, doctor comes with ailment or disease, they say never diagnose yourself. Because why? You're amidst in it. You may not think clearly. You may not be able to see clearly. And you need an outside doctor to examine you for him to give you a better synopsis. This is a situation sometimes like this, because what is happening in Nigeria is a multitude of problems. But we have problems in the north, okay, has to be looked at. And anyone who says that the northern Nigeria and the Sahel region is immaterial is nuts. Because the situations that's going on in the Sahel between the three major groups in particular, which is, again, as you heard me say, especially to the Western Corridor, you have the Tuareg, and you have the Arabs, and then you have the Fulani. In Nigeria, you have this. You have the Christian, and you have the traditional African religions, and then you have the Muslims. And the northern part is being mishandled for obvious reasons. As an outsider looking in, so I will say to you, there's a lot of literature out there right now talking about Boko Haram and Ansaru and the bandits, okay? And there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. You have many think tanks that have given a lot of misinformation. I have quite a bit of notes that I gathered, which I feel are more factual than some of the others. As you heard me say, and you've been hearing me say for a long time, we have a situation here where we have Black folks, Black men, Black Muslims, Africans, who have taken the philosophy from the Jazeera Arab, namely ISIS or Islamic State and the AQ. Boko Haram is aligned and made bay'ah to the Islamic State. Ansaru has made bay'ah to the AQ. You already see the dilemma we have right there? The bandits are not aligned to nobody. They go where the money flows. Even though they all three sometimes talk about getting together. And in some instances, they have got together to make havoc in the Northeast and the Northwest. So we know right now that the Boko Haram insurgents, my notes here, I got things wrote down here, and I'm going to give it to you as I see it. The Boko Haram insurgents, and that's what we call them. None of us should call these three groups mujahideen. They are not mujahideen fi sabilillah, meaning in the cause of Allah. Yes, two said they spout out, they want the Sharia Allah. Probably they do, but they have developed ways and means that are contrary to Sharia Allah and contrary to the commands of our Prophet alayhi salatu salam. And this is true fact. We're not calling them kafir. No. The bandits, you could probably make some elements of takfir against them. But again, since I'm not there, you're not there who's not living in Nigeria, and others, we cannot even make takfir on them because we know some are Muslims and some are not Muslims. That is done by some of our scholars who are on the ground, like Sheikh Gumi and Sheikh Bala and so forth. There's many. They're on the ground. They know. They've talked to these wayward brothers. So I'm not going to even try to enter into discussion about that. Well, we know that the Ansaru and Boko Haram are elements are operating, and now they're talking about getting together, and even now talking about cooperating with certain bandits. What makes this even more critical. And we have to ask, what is going on here? What is going on is the bandit power and independence. Nigerian bandits have grown powerful and not desperate for the cooperation with the Mujahideen. They have, in some instances, have done this, but everybody has their hands in what? The pockets of the Fulani. Because nobody in Nigeria or anywhere in the Sahel can be successful without the Fulani participation in it, because we have the most population in it, and we have had history in this region. We have controlled this region basically since the 700s, when we first got the Islam and we took it, and we spread it across the Sahel into the coastal regions. This is why Subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us as the first Muslims. He gave us the most scholars. He gave us the most sultanates. You look at this and you see Subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted the jihad from 700 to the 1800s, and now going back now to present times. The smartest of educators, Fulani, some of the leaders, our greatest leaders, and some of our most learned men, Fulani, they know this. Boko Haram, Ansaru, the bandits. And so they go and they try to work out schemes with the Fulani. But there's a bigger picture here, brothers and sisters. See, that they're being used because the big picture is what they see and fear is not Boko Haram. It's not Ansaru. And it's not the bandits. It's the Fulani. And the Fulani jihad. You hear this talk now being brought up, especially by the Christian groups in Nigeria and outside of Nigeria. You hear this talk also by Tubab media as well. And they're fearing a conglomerate of Fulani intellectuals and common folk and herders under the banner of Miyate Allah. That scares them, brothers and sisters. When you take a name like this, there's other names that you can use. You use Boko Haram, talking about the corruption of Western, and you can say Ansaru, that's okay. When you say Miyate Allah, that has significance. In another segment, I'll talk about these two words, and I'll talk about the groups under it. But brothers and sisters, you have to look at the big picture. If you see what's happening right now, the Fulani groups, irrespective if you are involved in any conspiracy, quote unquote, there's a fear factor. and they see Boko Haram and Ansaru and the bandits as peripheral, but they use them as a vehicle to go after the Fulani population. And you have to ask the question, with all of the money pumped in, all the military might and military madness that's been pumped in to Nigeria, you have all of the intelligence agencies from the Tubab governments there. You have military in there present. Why can't they stamp out Boko Haram and Ansaru? They just get, it says, we have a report here where they're getting stronger, okay, and more deadly. We know that. Because they need them in order, because if they stamp them out, what they fear is that they won't have no vehicle now to go after the Fulani, and it will cause a big Fulani jihad, which is beginning to raise its head. And we have some people calling for the separation in Nigeria from the north and from the south. I'm an outsider looking in. I see my brothers, the Futafula, and I hear their cries, and I read what they're saying, and I look at what the enemy is saying about them. And if you look at the pundits, the Christian pundits, especially in some of the Igbo and the Yoruba and Tiv, you look at some of their stations and some of their writings. When they talk about Boko Haram, this one thing. When they talk about the Ansaru, that's another thing. When they talk about the bandits, they don't like it. But what gets you smell the fear is when they say, Miyate Allah. It's because this amalgamation is enough to govern the land. Boko Haram cannot govern Nigeria. Ansaru cannot govern Nigeria. The bandits cannot govern Nigeria or any parts of the Sahel. Cannot. The only one who has the means, the manpower, the intellectual ability, the financial means, money, and sheer manpower is the Futafula. The only ones right now been able to put Boko Haram, the Ansaru, and the bandits at bay. Even though we have bandits who many are Fulani, we have our own Fula, bandits, and we have those who are mixed groups, ethnic groups, and there's criminals, but we have some bandits that are organized, but none of them brings the power of Miyate Allah. And this is why they're going hard after the leadership. This is why they're going hard after scholars who belong to these organizations. I'll talk deeper into this at another time, at another segment. But I'm trying to give those brothers and sisters who live outside, especially in the United States and Europe and outside in other parts of Africa, don't understand what's going on in Nigeria. They read this and that, they're not quite understanding. I'm kind of giving you a picture so you can understand. And if you read the literature that's going on right now, there's a big fear. We have politicians now talking about, quote unquote, the Fulani jihad. They're talking about also the new caliphate that they fear that's coming from the Fulani. They fear it. They're not talking about, if you read the documents and you hear the fear, they're not talking about Boko Haram. They're not talking about the Ansaru. They're not talking about the bandits. Yes, they are a nuisance. Oh, yes, and they're killing, and it's taken away from the wealth of the country. But they're not fearing a takeover. They're not fearing a conglomerate of Nigeria where the Miyate Allah is controlling it and controlling the Sahel. They see this. The Americans see it as well. The Russians see it as well. This is why these groups are used to help to suppress the Fulani. And misinformation, disinformation, and out loud lies that says you, me, every Fulani, as part, as you heard me say for weeks, as part of AQ and part of ISIS. This is how they go after our ulama among the Fulani as well. They say we're all connected to some group, which is not true. The rank and file Fulani brother and sister have nothing to do with any of these groups. They are maligned. They can't get jobs. They get discriminated against. In some parts, when the brother brings his wife in an area where the Fulani, there may be some incidents, his wife can't even have babies in certain hospitals and clinics because they're Fulani. That's make matters worse. You go next door to Togo. Togo is experiencing the same thing. Again, they fear what? The cohesion between the Fulani. So what they're doing, they're suppressing them. In Ghana, they had raids and they got their butt kicked a couple of years ago when they, you remember that program I had here maybe about 7 months ago? I showed that tape of that one commander who went into the north, quote unquote, when he kept asking the question about, are the Fulanis better than us? He showed all of this hate, and then they got spanked. Some of their security people were killed, but they've been in the midst of throwing the Fulani out. Yet and still, Boko Haram is running across the plains in small groups. That's not being talked about. See? So you have to look at for the bigger picture. The end game is the suppression of the Fulani jihad. It's the assurance that the Fulani groups of our learned men and our most elite Fulani persons don't galvanize and come together and bring some political wing along with a security wing, along with a financial wing, and begin to dominate the politics in the Sahel under Miyati Allah. That's right. So you look at this, brothers and sisters, and what I'm saying, and you do your research, listen to the reasoning I'm having behind this, you do your research, and you look at what has happened. And you see a lot. Yes, they talk about the Ansaru and there's resurgence and their applications about the AQ, because remember I told you, the ISIS, you have Boko Haram is aligned to ISIS, and you have the Ansaru aligned to the AQ. They're talking about all this, what's happening, and they talk about what the different objectives and what they're doing, and they're talking about the bandits versus the mujahideen. I'm talking about the Fulani herdsmen. And if you remember 5 years ago, after the reprisal attacks and the Fulani jihad was, it's still strong, but it was really gathering steam. And the Messina group started calling for a jihad. And you remember the leader of the Messina group, what did he say? He said they had Fulani that came from both sides of the ocean of West Africa. In Africa. From Senegal all the way from Eritrea, the Fulani people begin to come to jihad. Now you get the picture, brothers and sisters? Now you get the picture? It's not Boko Haram. It's not Ansaru. It's not them. It's not the bandits. The end game is the suppression of the Fulani and making sure that they don't galvanize of two words that brings fear to them. Miyati Allah. That brings fear. You look at the politicians when they talk about this in the Sahel, Nigeria in particular, you smell the fear. When they say Boko Haram, it's anger. When you say the Ansaru, they call them terrorists and so forth and so on. When they talk about the bandits, they have anger about them and how they're going to quell them. But when they mention the two words, Miyate Allah, you smell the fear. They don't know how to handle us. And now a prominent leader in one of the factions, I get it another time, we all know what happened to him. He got arrested for something they claim that's terror related. Because He's gathering forces up. They don't want to see this. Yes, they see Boko Haram may be growing here and there, and they see Ansaru. They don't care about that. See, they don't care about that. And the bandits, they don't care. They care about Miyate Allah. And that one day, the particular groups under this title, Miyate Allah, will finally come together in a political wing, in a security wing, and a financial wing, and it will blow away and destroy the infrastructures of the Sahel, meaning the democratic process and the Tubab reign of hell in the Sahel and West Africa in particular. Because at this stage of the game, from the Sahel across, it's the Futafula community. I'm not saying that other people are inferior. That's not what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, because I'm African too. I have Mendinka blood. I have Mende blood as well. I have Capelli blood. I have some of the Omo people of Sudan. I have all that. I'm not slighting anybody. I'm talking the truth. I'm talking about something we have to think about. Nobody can get on the phone and call up a ethnic group who stretches from ocean to ocean and they come in jihad. Nobody has that power except us. Only the Futafula can galvanize something like this. They can sit in Mali. You heard what the leader said of the Messina, Kitab Messina. What did he say? When they got on the phone and they got on the pagers and space phones and all that, the Fulani began to come everywhere. This is the end game, brothers and sisters, even in Nigeria, is the suppression of the Fulani to assure that they do not galvanize and destroy the infrastructure that we understand today that is killing us, that they'll bring a whole new way, and they don't want to see that. They don't want to see that. I got some people here. Let me see. We got here. How you doing, my dear brother? Thank you for showing up. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that a lot. Well, alaikum salam, my dear brother. Thank you for showing up. I'm glad you show up today, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you and your families all are well, and that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala looks out for you. And my dear brother here, HD, he always participating. I love him to death. He's a good brother. And thanks for showing up. And he said, how do we get all groups to come together peacefully and unite as West Africans and Sahelians? It can happen. But you've got many players that won't allow this to happen, my dear brother. This is kind of like what I'm saying. They're using Boko Haram and Ansaru and all these deviant groups who've made alliances to Jazeera Arab, okay? To groups from Jazeera Arab, making alliances, and they use this. And the only people who have shown the propensity to bring people from Senegal across the Sahel has been what? The Fulani sultanates in the past. Powerful sultanates. And the next segment, I'll read you what summary Toure, when the Mendika, the Wassalu, remember the small sultanate that he had? What did he say about the Fulani? He had interesting comment that he wrote in a letter in Arabic about the Fulani people and about their jihad and their Islam. This is in the 1800s. See, so this is what, and I'm going to get into this in segments because I want the full understanding on what I'm talking about. How you doing, my dear brother, Suleiman? Thank you for showing up, my dear brother. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you all for showing up today. And again, I want to shed light on something, brothers and sisters. Please don't think I'm against the Tiv or the Yoruba, Igbo or whomever, or the other of our house of brothers, which they are our cousins. Okay, because you have to look at something. You know, the big jihad that happened in Sudan, right? In the 1800s, it was three groups in particular who made the jihad there. The Fulani people, okay, the Fulani brothers, the Hausa brothers, and the Kanuri brothers. That's right, who made the trek of jihad together in Sudan. They were not separated. They went to make jihad in Sudan after the death of Usman Den Fodio, and they were called to jihad in Sudan. Three major groups went to Sudan. Again, the Fulani, the Hausa, and the Kanuri. That's right. We have a long history. A long history. And when, boy, that's very interesting here. Okay, boy, that's very interesting. Where's the other? That's very interesting. Well, anyway, the gist of what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, is exactly that. And you have to look at this in its alignment. I'm going to tell you right now, if the Fulani leadership finally gets it together, but it's going to be prevented, you have the Tubab governments, you have the hypocrites, you have those working in the government, you have the security apparatus who are being run by the security apparatuses of the Tubab nations. They are going to do everything they can to keep the Fotofola community from gathering steam. See, and this is the truth. The Boko Haram and subgroups are aligned with ISIS, and the Ansaru is aligned with AQ. The Bandits are not aligned, as you heard me say. All three groups flirt with the possibilities of alliance. They've been going on and off, but now they're fighting. My word is, what I got now is that there's a fight, and even inside Boko Haram, there's a fight between two ethnic groups, Kanuri and another group, smaller group, and they're arguing, fighting about leadership role. None of these groups are capable of mounting a jihad to take the reins of Nigeria. You get the picture, brothers and sisters? Why, yes, they talk. Yes, they don't like what they're doing. The criminal acts of kidnapping. All this stuff is not approved under the Sharia law. It is not. It's criminal. But they cannot take take the reins of Nigeria. They cannot. Even if we separate and northern Nigeria becomes its own state under the Sharia law, Boko Haram and Ansaru will not be able to control it. It cannot. They don't have the sheer manpower. They don't have the money and the intellectual ability to do it. They don't have it. They lack the leadership, ingenuity to form a government body. You know why that is, brothers and sisters? If you look at groups like Miyati Allah, okay, there's two groups. I'll get further in another segment, but our brothers in Nigeria, they know what I'm talking about. And then we have another subgroup also as well, okay, that's there, and also in Ghana and other places, and France, their home base. These other three groups cannot form anything. They don't have the leadership. They don't have the intellectuals. The Fotofola have intellectuals galore, and they have very wealthy elite individuals. See, this is the difference. But I'm not praising them to the extent of saying that at this present stage they're capable. They are not, because they're lacking certain things now. I will say that. But I'll get into that in another segment. But the other three groups, they lack this ingenuity. They don't have the scholars. They don't have the Sheikh Gumis or Sheikh Bala or some of the famous Sheikh. They don't have those type of caliber individuals who can give the proofs, okay, the indices, the bayana, we call this in Arabic, to the people. They cannot. They don't have that. See, what the Fulani does. Big difference. And also, they can't, because subhanahu wa ta'ala, in my estimation, what I know and what I see and what we have witnessed in the last year since IS reign of terror and the AQ, and subhanahu wa ta'ala has stopped them to a degree. See, he won't let them take power because they are doing things that are outside of Islamic Sharia. Stealth attacks, bombing. You heard me talk about this for weeks. These things are very criminal. Kidnappers, the majority of their members. This is the other thing. Majority of the members of those three groups lack the Islamic education and worldly education to lead a nation. They cannot. Boko Haram they have some, but most of their people are not educated Islamically or worldly, so they cannot. This is stopping them. And subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of what they're doing, the way I see it, I do not know. I cannot talk for subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm talking about from a person who's looking at this from the outside in, who does have a relationship with subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. And I'm seeing it, looking at how subhanahu wa ta'ala is put like a sutra. We call it in Arabic. Sutra is like a barrier. Okay. Like a barrier, like a hudud, a border. In Arabic, hudud, where yes, he's allowing them to do certain things, but he's not going to allow them to come to take over any of the land in the countries in the Sahel. He will not at this stage. He cannot, they cannot. So how are they going to run a country when their mode of operations is kidnapping? See? And they don't have the learned man who can run the financial markets, can run the Sharia law. They cannot. See? And all of them, these three groups, all cannot convince the Futafullah to join in their jihad. Yes, we have certain ones who have done it, like some ones who got together with bandit groups and they did it. Some have jumped in with the AQ. Some have jumped in even with Boko Haram. But this jihad is illegal, brothers and sisters. This is the difference. And because it's an illegal jihad, in my estimation, subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a sutra, a barrier, okay? A sutra between, what they're doing and over here going to the right way and to governing and to rule under his law. This is the way I see it. But the groups and the people that could possibly organize the Miyate Allah to bring it together, I believe because subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us since the 700s, they can do it. And I'm not the only one talking this. Our enemies are talking the same thing. Why do you think they spend so much time going after Sheikh Gumi there in northern Nigeria, in Kaduna? Why? You think about this and many others. So you think about that. It's criminal and devoid of indices. The Boko Haram, Ansaru, it's criminal, brothers and sisters. It's the bottom line, okay? I'm not calling them kafir. I'm not calling that. That's for our brothers there in Nigeria who's dealing with them and are scholar about to make this type of takfir. I don't want to get into that because I don't want to call them that. But they are doing criminal acts. We can't say that part. And they are lacking the wisdom and scholarly body needed to govern. They cannot. These groups lack the worldly support needed to justify their jihad. This is the other thing. Brothers and sisters, under Miyate Allah, it could galvanize upwards of 1 million Futafullah people. Boko Haram cannot do this. The Ansaru cannot do this. And the Bandits certainly cannot do this. The Tuareg cannot do this. The Arabs, they cannot do this either. The Afro-Arabs sitting in the side, they cannot. The House of Brothers cannot. They don't have this type of manpower. They just don't. However, the Boko Haram and Ansaru and the bandits are putting a strain on the government. Yes, because when they kidnap, and especially when they take young girls or they go and kill family who cannot give the money, this is very troublesome and very sad, and exposes the ineptitude of the security apparatus. How can Boko Haram and Ansaru go back and forth everybody knows they're sitting in some parts of Chad, they're sitting in the forest, they're sitting in other areas, and they're allowed to go into Niger, they're allowed to go into Cameroon, they're allowed to float in and out of west and east northern Nigeria. We know they're hard because they may have small little groups, but they're allowed to flourish. These security forces don't possess the right ethnic groups to combat the insurgents. Brothers and sisters, we go back to an issue you've been hearing me say when I've been talking about the Sahel. We have to talk about the ethnic groups. When you got mainly Tiv and Yoruba and Igbo and security forces coming to the north, okay, to fight Muslims, this is problematic. And we've seen time and time again. Just recently here, a couple of weeks, what happened? We had, I think it was 34 Fulani children were killed. They say by security forces. Security forces said it wasn't them. But if I remember right what I read, see, the government has flirted with ethnic militias with limited success. They're starting to get them together to go to fight against the groups, getting Kunuri, getting the Fulani youths and so forth and so on. But this is not working very well. And who are ill-advised and trained to fight hardened battle insurgents like Boko Haram. You can't get a militia just because they're young and you throw them together and you're going to go fight against Boko Haram and Ansaru who have been involved in this criminality for many years now, over a decade. And they're battle hardened and tested. They have fought armies, they've fought security forces, they've had dealings even with the Tuba. So you just can't get a bunch of young Fulani brothers, Hausa brothers, and maybe Kunuri brothers, and get them together and just throw them into a group, okay? And this group over here, they'll be fighting the Fulani bandits. They'll be dealing with the Fulani herdsmen. Then the Hausa militias will deal with the bandits and so forth and so on. And then Kunuri will be dealing with the Boko Haram. That's not going to work, and it hasn't worked, and it will not work. Combating bandits in the mix, the government is hamstringing the ulama. I've said this 1,000 times. In Nigeria alone, not only Fulani, you have Hausa. You got many scholars inside Nigeria, many brilliant statesmen and learned men and imams, many. And they're willing to do many things to bring peace and bring these wayward groups to the table, and they've been hamstrung. Every time we turn around, the government is adding and twitching the Constitution to make it criminal for the ulama to do their job. And you have to ask why the government's doing that, because they apparently don't want peace. Because as you heard me say many times, which one garners the most money? When Boko Haram and Ansaru and the bandits running amok, the Americans, the British, the IMF, and all others begin to pour money into the country, quote unquote, to fight terrorism. People, pocketbooks get fat from that. If those groups are eliminated, that money dries up. And Nigeria doesn't need it. But again, because of, I'm not going to get into their situation. We know they have all this oil. We know the situation. But they just are not going in the right direction to bring peace. They cannot. These three groups have had very little success dealing with the Futafula. Again, you heard me say this. We know this for a fact. We know that the Fulani herdsmen and their affiliates have kicked the butts of Boko Haram and Ansaru on and off over the years. okay, on and off. And sometimes Boko Haram has gotten some of the bandits. We know that as well. I mean, excuse me, some of the Fulani herdsmen. We know that as well. But we know that when the Boko Haram looks at things and Ansaru look at things, when they moving across in the Sahel, they see they got the Fulani Mujahideen herdsmen, and they got the security forces here. Most likely they know the security forces have, they're hamstringed, they have a lot of restraints, and there's a lot of things they do not know. But the herdsmen are not bounded by that. This is why they're better at filtering out in the forest regions, in the Sahel region, the enemy Boko Haram. And we've seen this. We've seen the Fulani herdsmen in southeast Niger kick out Boko Haram. We know the Fulani there in the northwestern part of Cameroon has dealt a heavy blow against the Boko Haram as well. See, we know this. But the Fulani herdsman, again, who presents a clear and present danger to their jihad. That's to the government, and it's to these criminal groups known as Boko Haram, Ansaru, and the Bandits. That's right, brothers. That's correct. Okay, let me see here. We got some more comments here. Who are the Futafula? This is the Fulani. Well, this is another name that the Fulani people. We have quite a few names in Sudan. We know it as the Faleta. That's what they call us there in Sudan. And there's another Falata. There's a lot of names that we're called across the Sahel region. So Futafula is one of them. There's others too. We know that sometimes they call us Futatoro. They call us other things like this. So we have different names. So Futafula is another name for the Fulani people. How you doing, my dear sister? Boko are making influence. Yeah, they make, because they lump, again, when the Boko Haram does the kidnapping, and then the bandits, the Fulani bandits, okay, the young men, they do something that hurts all of us, even me, because all of us, this gives the enemies, the Tubab governments, the vehicle to go after all of us. And that's why I said they're using them in order to suppress the Futafula, the Fulani, because it's the Fulani who they fear. It's the Fulani who they know can gather up thousands and thousands of troops in a matter of days, that no one else can do that. They know that. And we start to have the organization, Miyate Allah. They know this. They don't want to see it. So they use Boko Haram and Ansaru and the bandits to let them do their dirty work and then go after us. And then we have Fulani bandits as well, who are ruthless, who don't care anything about their Islamic religion at all. They're also causing problems. And then when they go kidnap some Tiv families and kill them, the Tiv come back to make retaliation on, like what happened, I think here now, 5 or 6 years ago, those 4 young Fulani brothers in the car going across the highway. They're getting ready to go to, I forgot, they're getting ready to go to the university, whatever. They were some of our brightest young men. And they pulled them out of the car and killed them. I'm not sure if this was the Tiv, but I remember this incident. And just recently in March, we had, I think, young Fulani killed again. So we're getting massacred, and nobody talks about that. I've talked about this, and that's the other issues. I may touch that again another time. But yes, they're making us look bad. It's true. And this is why they focus. The media is focused on the criminal elements of the Fulani. See, but in the back of their mind and in the back stages, they're trying to suppress the groups that can bring about change in Nigeria and across the Sahel under Miyate Allah. This is the truth. So they concentrate and talk about the bandits, yes. But They know they can never take over any government inside the Sahel. They cannot. But under the banner of Miyate Allah, we have the statesmen, we have the manpower, and we have the financial means to do this. This is what they fear. Yes, I'm a House of Fulani, seeing them kidnap people make me feel sad. Yes, I don't like it. And it's against the Sharia law. We all must understand that. If you heard me say this type of crap here, I use that vernacular, is born out of IS and AQ's criminal activities from Jazeera Arab. Why you think I keep telling everybody, you hear me say 1,000 times, that the AQIS, who belong in Jazeera Arab, who are over here now recruiting black folk to join their thing and to do their business of pipe bombing, kidnappings, stealth bombings, putting pipe bombs under cars, and ruthlessly killing people and kidnapping virginal young girls. All this stuff comes out from the playbook from Jazeera Arab. This is not Futafula. This is not even Hausa. This is not coming from any of the Futafula, the Mandinka, Mende, all of the great sultanates we had. It didn't come from that. This came from all the bad actors, okay, from Jazeera Arab, who came into West Africa and then began to recruit our brothers and begin to tell them what to do. And they did it. Kidnapping, pipe bombing, stealth bombing, okay, all kind of other crap they pull. This is coming from Jazeera Arab. This is why I said, now, please understand me right. I don't want somebody to accuse me of racism. I'm not saying that. You understand? We're talking about criminal elements. We're talking about the criminal elements. We're talking about the IS. We're talking about the AQ. We're not talking about our Afro-Arab brothers in Saudi Arabia and Yemen. We're not talking about the rank and file brother. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the criminal elements from Jazeera Arab who came into West Africa and gave our brothers a nasty playbook to go by: kidnapping, stealth bombing, pipe bombs, kidnapping our young girls, and kidnapping for ransom, and all this other crazy stuff they got from this playbook that came from Jazeera Arab. This is why I'm ardently against this group, both of these groups, or any of these groups from Jazeera Arab, because that's their fight over there. When they entered into the Sahel, that has nothing to do with what's happening in Syria and the Levant and all that. Has nothing to do with the problems with the Futafula, where we have grazing, water, and we have problems with our farmer brothers, okay? When they came over here, they complicated that by telling our impressionable young men who, yes, don't have the education, yes, they're wayward, yes, they don't have money and means. So they listen to this message and they say, look, if you go kidnapping, this is what you can do. This is why I'm against the AQ and IS. Why I said I want them to get the hell out. Go back to Jazeera Arab. And those Africans who want to go with them, let them go to Jazeera Arab and do the numbers over there in Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. That's where they belong. Let us over here do what we're supposed to do, work with the governments and do what we have to do to get our people back into grazing lands so we can have this natural cohesion between the farmers and the herders, as you heard me say on other programs, because we both need each other. We need our farmers because we need, we need our bananas and plantain and dasheen and stuff like. We need that, and our farmer brothers and families, they need our milk and our meat products, right? See, this is what I'm talking about. It is the same as if life. I don't, brother. Please explain this to me. I don't know exactly what you. I don't know. Please, HD. Please explain that so I can further understand it. How can we solve these problems affecting the Muslim Ummah? We cannot. Not at this stage. The Prophet ﷺ gave us a direction. If you go back to the Hadiths, my dear brother, you go back to the Hadiths. He gives a timeline on the end times. We're getting there. We're at a period of time where he said that the Bedouins, meaning those in UAE, will build the tallest buildings. We're at that stage. We got another stage where it said that their killings that's going to happen will be what they call el-harj, meaning people killing at will. We're starting to see this. When we start to see this, it's going to come a time where the Islamic power will rise. And we're starting to see this now. as the continent now is starting, we have young leaders who are starting to throw out our enemy. We're starting to see this. So the Muslim Ummah right now is so divided and so weak, as you see. In Gaza, if we were strong, we would have put an end to this thing a long time ago. But we let this enemy kill 30,000 Muslims, over 30,000, because we're weak. We should be able to stop this. The jihad to come, it will be under one ruler. This jihad will be so massive and so powerful that the whole world will be under its banner. But it's not happening yet. It's going to happen. And our dear sister said, yeah, right. So we are in a predicament, brothers and sisters, because you see, I'm an old man. I'm looking at the Ummah. I am dismayed at what I see. I am dismayed. And many times I have to really check myself. When I see in the Muslim states, the Tubab running amok, ordering our government officials, ordering our security apparatus, our police and everything, ordering them around and ordering them to do things wrong against a law, against the hudud of law, and we do it. If we were strong in the Ummah, we wouldn't have this. Over here, the Tubab can get many people because we don't have jobs. And he can pay them a small amount of money and tell them to go after the scholarly body and our intellectuals like myself and go after us. And devilishly switch the things around. Not the robber, the drug dealer, the pimps and all the other criminals. No, they criminalize people like me. We have this all through the Muslim states. See, but it's going to come a time that they will be thrown out. And Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name will be supreme. And it's not off topic. You know, I've just read a report about Burkina Faso. Before you, my Fulani brothers in particular, and Muslims in general, start to praise the new leader there in Burkina Faso, you better see what he's doing to the Fulani community. They say since he came to power, the new headman in Burkina Faso, they have increased their killings of the Fulani communities. See, this is a problem. That's why we have to be very cautious of our support. Because you need, yes, he talked good about the West and everything. Yes, he's talking good. But there's two factors, brothers and sisters, about the new leaders. And I'm going to give it to you here, too. They're talking good. Throwing the Americans out, throwing the French out, getting their money sent back that's been stolen from us and in banks, getting our mineral wealth and selling it at market value so we bring the wealth back into the country. But there's two factors that's missing. One is they're increasing their attacks on the Fulani people and killing us. And the most important fact is none of them have the gumption to issue Sharia law. Why is that? Think about that, my dear brothers and sisters. Why these three brave leaders of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger talk good, but they're killing Fulani as we speak. Stop praising them. You find out what's going on. When I start to do more research, I start to get deep down, and I'm starting to see reports of the Fulani are complaining about new security force attacks on the Fulani in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and in Niger. And the brother who's running the show in Niger is Hausa. He's our cousin. See? but none of them seem to want to run Sharia law. That takes gumption. But as a Muslim, you're supposed to orchestrate that when you run the Sharia law. We're not talking about one little aspect here in marriage and land rights and divorces and all that. We're talking about running the administration of justice, all of the aspects of the Sharia law, financial and everything. None of them seem to have that kind of gumption to do that. I wonder why. Our brother here, Diallo, said, with the next Islamic Caliphate be from the Arabs also. There's contention that before the Mahdi come, who will come out from the Jazeera Arab region, we have scholars on the ground talking about this issue. He will bring about this big caliphate. But there's a talk of another smaller, because we will have this, they will get weak and then come back. But these particular caliphates will be strong. And these, I believe, will come out of Africa. I believe this. And I also believe something else to this. When this happened, I believe the coordination be through the Fulani people. The Fulani people will be running this. Because there's something that Subhanahu wa ta'ala give us. And again, brothers and sisters, please don't misunderstand me here. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not talking against our Mandinka brothers or our Mende brothers. I'm talking about facts of history. Why did Subhanahu wa ta'ala give the Fulani people Islam first? See, I'm just giving you what has happened. We have to look at it from an Islamic point of view. Look at the sultanates and everything. Subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with all these sultanates ranging from the 700s, Takrir region. Okay, Takrir region. We don't talk about that. I want to talk about them. I talked about them in Andalus. Who went into Andalus and opened it up? It was the Futafula, along with the Sanike brothers and the Saint Wolof was also involved in this. They said some Hausa were involved in this, but the main component was who? The Futafula. Again, it shows Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us certain things. When Timbuktu opened up, all the brilliant universities and all that, who are the greatest scholars there? 3 out of the 5 were who? Futafula, they're Fula. Some of the greatest professors of science and other things, and language, everything that was going on in the universities there in Timbuktu during the height of its power. Who were its greatest professors? Again, the Futafula. So I'm talking about something, I'm looking at history, I'm looking at what Subhanahu wa ta'ala has done. I'm giving you those facts. You research it and you see what I'm talking about. Now he's still giving us, who are our greatest scholars, mainly in West Africa, are Fulani. So I'm only talking, if it was Hausa, I would say Hausa. I would say that. But it's not. So this is why I'm talking. And that's why I'm talking about this. And I foresee that others are seeing this as well. This is why the suppression. Why do you think they're going after Miyati Allah? Miyati Allah, they're going after the groups under that very, very hard. Things we do, things we say, they're checking us. Okay, our brother here, Jello, says here, Leslie, he's not Pulo. Some say his prime minister, Soka mother, is Fuller, but not. Yeah, you know what? I heard something like this, and I can't confirm. I can't confirm it either. But you know, in some ways, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna tell you why. We have wayward Fulani leaders. Okay. Do we have to mention their names? Huh? And they're in bed with the West? Huh? We have those. And those leaders are betraying us. And those leaders are allowing for our enemies to kill us. And they're Fulani. And they have the power to stop it. And they don't. So in this instances right now, it doesn't make a difference because those who are governed over us now are weak. And I still say to you now, brothers and sisters, what I look at, the power and strength of a ruler, he's Muslim, is if he implements Sharia law. If he implements this, now I know he is a strong believer because Subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran. You cannot be among the believers, meaning I'm not talking about Muslim. There's a difference between a person who's a Muslim and a person who's a mu'min. It's a big difference between the two. One, yes, he does everything. The Muslim does everything possible, but he's not deeper in faith. The mu'min has more deep conviction towards Subhanahu wa ta'ala. See? And when you bring in the Sharia, this is a mu'min, the mu'mineen. This is why you see Subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he mentions in the Quran, you see him, Ya ayyuha adina amanu. He doesn't say Muslimun, he says amanu. That means believers. Those, all believers. See, believers meaning devout Muslims. He doesn't say, Ya adina muslimin. He doesn't say that. Amanu, he says. And our sister gave thanks to this. HD, is there a name for all these groups together as an umbrella term? Okay, what groups you talking about? You talking about the criminal elements, or are you talking about the Futufula Islamic groups and so forth? I don't know which one you're talking about. Please give me a clarification on that. Brothers and sisters, yeah, I'll be closing here shortly. I wanted to talk about this issue today and give you some of my opinions about some latest facts, what's going on. And I want you to look at it from another standpoint, because when you put up documents, you're more confused on what's what. And again, you'll see most think tanks have you, me, if you're Fulani, we're all linked to some criminal organization. That's bizarre. That's bizarre because they don't make a differential. Some say, yes, they have fringe groups of the Futufula who join bandits and so forth, which is true. But they lump all of us together. And this is wrong. Senegal? No, I heard he's not. I heard he's not Fulani. I tried to pick up what he is, and I forgot what they said he was from. But I heard he's not Fulani. Yes, I forgot. He's the fourth one. We have 4 new leaders. Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. I'm waiting. I see them reading the Quran. I see them saying the right things. I see them talking against the Americans' occupation and the French occupation of Africa and West Africa and the Sahel in particular. I see this. I hear this. I see the beautiful speeches. But I'm still waiting for one of them to come back after he puts the Quran down that says, I'm going to implement Sharia law. I'm waiting for that. And I'm hoping that we get it. Okay. Foot to foot. Okay, yeah, okay. You talk, yeah. Again, these are names, if we're talking about in Sudan, we're not called that. In Sudan, we call it Faleta. See, so we have different names. And Habasha, they call us a similar name. And Eritrea, they call us a similar name as well. So we have different names in the Sahel region that call us. We know that Hausa coined the term Fulani. We know this, okay? Pulo is actually more of the Fulfulde language. Okay, we know this, not Fulani. We understand that. So we more or less adopted the name that the Hausa has bestowed on us by using the word Fut. They call us Fulani. See, but we know that in the Futufule dialect, Pulo and so forth and so on is the correct name for us and whatnot. She's saying what the what do you call? Oh man, Mumbaro. I think is the name they call them there. In Mubaro, something like yes. In the Cameroons, they call us that. Again, a different name. They call us another name in Rwanda because we're in Rwanda too, brothers and sisters. Oh yes, And if you remember the big thing that happened, the massacre between the Tutsis and the Houthis, and remember that? Okay, one of the groups, I can't remember which one, had Fulani element in it. That's right. Okay, there's where people are from. This is where people are from. Now we mean from the Cameroons. We're all over the place. You know, we're in North Africa. We're in, of course, in the Western Corridor. We're in the coastal region. We're going to the east and to Chad, Sudan. We understand today. We're in Ethiopia. We're in Somaliland, in Somal. We're also in, Tanzania. We're in the Congo. We're in Rwanda as well. The Cameroons, as you heard me say, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. Okay, we're everywhere. And we call ourselves full bit. Yes, thank you. Yes, we call ourselves that. That's right. We call ourselves that, and that's true. So thank you, my dear brother, for again enlightening us on that. Yes, Cameroon. And because we have different names. I'm still trying to learn the Pular. I'm still learning. I'm learning it and stuff like that. I'm learning the language. And but what's funny? I come across because when I look at history, I'm looking at people using, especially in the Sahel region, I'm seeing they using the Messina for full-day dialect. And I've asked some brothers about this particular dialect of the Fotofola, and he said it's difficult. I had one brother write me approximately 8 months ago talking about this issue because he and I was talking about names. I asked him, why did the Sultanate leaders have the name Sawadi and these names like this, and Sani, these type of names, coming out of the Messina, the Fofodi dialect. Messina is in Mali. So, I have been studying this as well. And I studied the sultanates, and our leaders have beautiful names. That's one thing, the Fotofola, we adopted beautiful names we have. So Wadi and Sani and so forth comes out from the word Saada, Saadi. The Saadi people came into what? Al-Maghrib. You heard my classes talking about the Moroccan sultanates. They're essentially, fundamentally Fulani. That's right. If you look at my classes, I talked and gave you proof about that. See, so brothers and sisters, we're everywhere. This is what I was trying to explain to you, to say that the Boko Haram, the Ansaru, and the Bandits are in rouge to suppress us, because it's us who they really fear. It's us who they want to really control. But they use them as a way in order to go after us outright, because usually the enemies of Islam will take, when a Muslim robs a store in a small city, what happens? Usually the police go, especially out of non-Muslim states, they go after all the Muslims. Have you noticed that? One Muslim does something wrong. One Muslim has an incident with a girl. All the Muslims are blamed for it. See, we see that. And this is, and collective punishment in this sense is because Boko Haram, the Fulani bandits, we have that. And because of reprisal groups like the Fulani herdsmen and so forth, so on like this, they use this as a vehicle and whatnot. Even some of the people who said they're Fulani, who wrote me, they called me a terrorist. And some I had to throw them in Facebook and so forth and so on. One guy made a very, very bad remark. He said he was Fulani, but I had my suspicion he was Tubab. But he made a very, very bad comment to me, and I just can't see him being, unless he's so brainwashed, because if he says he's Fola, he could not say what he said to me, but he did. And I was very polite with him, but I blocked him after that. I wrote back to him and I said, "How could you say this?" And then I didn't want to hear his response anymore. And here we go here. Oh yes, the Tutsi in Rwanda and Omoro and are have. Yes, we have that. I wonder now. There's another word, Omo. OMO, which part of Sudan? They're northern part of Sudan, present-day Sudan, and in Chad. I know my mother's side, we have this heritage because they call them Omatic people, and they're part of Sudan and part of Chad as well. See, and there's other. I had them for, and they're in the strong jihad in Sudan now. I can't think the name. This is another Futafula group. I can't think of their name now because there's many. We have many names, brothers and sisters. Not all of us just are Fulani. We have others who adopted other names because they've been incorporated in Sudan and Ethiopia and Eritrea and so forth, Chad. And like our dear sister asked, I believe, about the Cameroons, the name Muboro is a name that's what they call us there. See, so Sudan, they call us Faleta. So we have all of these different names that they bestowed on us. See, we have all of that. So a lot of times you have to do your research and whatnot, and you'll find the research you see that they are pastoralists. They were moving cattle from one area to another, and they settled like in Rwanda. They were no longer called Fulani or Faleta or anything like this. They were not called that anymore. They adopted new names. See, so this is an interesting fact about that. Yeah, Tusa are from the Omoro, but they lost their language. Yes, this is a, thank you, my dear brother, for mentioning this. It's a good point. The Fulani people in general are losing the Fulfulde language. They're losing it. Okay, we see this, and we should start trying to restore this. Because many of us, when I start to pick up language, I picked up Hausa. I didn't pick up the Fulfulde dialect in Nigeria. See what I mean? You see, I picked up Hausa because I saw movies and so forth and so on. So I started picking up the Hausa language, and I started studying it more. And I saw some of our favorite, scholars of Islam there in Nigeria. They don't speak the full dialects. They speak Hausa. You see, so this is something. But I tell you something that really interests me is this Messina dialect. They're in Mali. They call it Messina Fulfulde. Reason why I say I'm very interested in this is because you heard my talk about the doggone people who have all of this innate intelligence that was given by Subhanahu wa ta'ala about the interstellar space, right? About the planets and so forth, about the Sirius star systems and all that. Okay, you heard my class talk about that. But what names did they use to call the planets? They used the Messina Fulfulde dialect. Sigi Toro, Po Toro, Ya Toro. This comes from the Messina Fulfulde dialect in Mali. That piqued my interest even more. Why did the doggone people use they didn't use their language to designate the interstellar space? They used the Messina Fulfulde language. The names of many of the great sultanates that, of the rulers, Sawadi, Sani, okay, Saadi, these names like this, they come from the Messina dialect. Guys, do your research. Very interesting. Not from Pular, from Messina Fulfulde dialect. Very, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. We are worked through, yes. You saw my class talking about, the script that is used, it is very related to the hieroglyphics of Egypt. I'm almost certain in my heart, my dear brother and my dear sisters, we come out of ancient Egypt. Because my DNA, when they got from my mother's Fulani, from her heritage, it showed them coming out from Egypt, which we know as Kemp, going southwards. We know that they had this LOA, okay, which is prevalent. This LOA on the mother's side, and the boys can have, the woman has this genotype. Then they circle back. If you saw my program, I showed you the map. They circled back to go north. They went back into Egypt and then across West Africa into North Africa. See? And so we know that the language, because if you look at the writing styles, they're all similar. You look at Geese, you look at the Mende script, okay? You see, we have many different scripts and very similar in its writings. Yoruba, okay? All are very similar in the script. Very, very similar. That tells me we came out from Egypt. Yes, I agree. Yes, and many people say that. Now we had other Fulani people say no, we came out of Europe. Some said they say they came out of Turkey. I don't buy that. I don't buy that because if this is the case, we would have another genotype. But many of the Fulani people I know, especially on our mother's side, we have this LOA, LO1, and so forth and so on. We have that. That's not prevalent in Asia. But we do know the Africans, of course, went north, of course, because we populated the world. We know that. But they didn't keep those genotypes. We know that. But as far as the West Africa and Egypt is concerned, again, we got the proof now. The West Africans are ancient Egyptians. The African Americans who were taken from West Africa, the Fulani, the Hausa, the Bambara, the Wolof, the Senike, and all these Mende, Mendinka, Capelli, all these groups and many more were taken from West Africa into the Americas. We are all ancient Egyptians because we made our trek. The script that we used are all similar. We have similar names. And what happens? Remember, I gave you the analogy about in the United States. The brothers in the South, they have a different dialect. They speak English, but it's different than your brothers from LA. The brothers in New York have a different type of sometimes I look at them. I mean, I used to, when I was living there, especially when I was younger, I listened to the brothers from New York and all that. Boston, they had this accent about them. The brothers from the South had their accent about them. I used to listen to them say, I say Mississippi, say Mississippi. I used to laugh when I used to hear them, and I used to ask them, hey, man, tell me Mississippi. And I hear them say Mississippi, Arkansas. They had this kind of accent. So the brothers in the West have their own accent. See, this is what happens when you have a home base, the brothers, our ancestors were brought to the South. Then they begin to go east and west and to the Midwest. They develop dialects, right? This is what happened when we left Egypt. We began to develop our own writing styles and languages. That's right. So this is what that's about. L3 also found in Egypt. Yeah, yes, sister. There it is. Yes. See, this is not prevalent to Europe or into Turkey or Asia. This is germane to Africa. That's right. See, this is germane to Africa and Egypt. It's the mummies. We know the female. We know that this LO1, LO2, LO3, all that. We know that goes all the way into South Africa, all the way down into the Bantu people, and then all the way across, back up across and across to North Africa. It's very, very, very interesting if you do the research on this. And our sister here said, yes, it's very, very interesting, brothers and sisters. And, one more thing, and I will close. If you guys have any more questions, I'll answer any more questions. Someone asked me one time, what is your recommendation about Boko Haram and so forth, and about our ethnic problems we have with the Kanuri people and with the Tiv and the Yoruba and all this type of thing? One of the things that you have to always remember something, especially you Muslims. The Muslims, we have a different set of rules that we have to go by. Let's face it, that's the bottom line. You as a Muslim, your first priority is always with another Muslim, irrespective if he's Mandinka, if he's Wolof or Mende, okay? Or if he's Capelli, if he's Senike or Hapapula, or whatever the situation may be. A Muslim is a brother to another Muslim. That priority is first. Subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that in the Quran. And you know the Sunnah of the Prophet, Islam, okay? We're talking Islamically. Then you have others that you have who are in humanity, our brothers and sisters in humanity. But the priority is those who are Muslims. And we have rules. The Yoruba and the Tivs and so forth who be animists or they are Juju or Ifa in Nigeria, whatever the situation is, they're not our priority. Meaning, yes, we have relationships with them, yes. But you cannot marry them because they're not Muslims. You understand? We got rules, Islamic rules. I don't want to get deep into the Islamic part because that's for another class. I've talked about this issue before. But they're still our African brothers, okay? So we should try to deal kindly because this is part of the Sharia and the Sunnah. Our Prophet ordered us, alayhi salatu wasalam, as Muslims to be kind to all people, irrespective if they're Muslims or not. But our first priority and relationships are with other Muslims. That's our first priority as Muslims. And then we have others. Because our prophet, he traded with the Jews. He traded with the Romans as well. We can have that. So we can have relationships. See, so that's important matter. And that's what I would suggest. I would suggest that these groups like this, you learn the Sharia and see if they're compatible to it. They're not. And remember something, brothers and sisters, you Muslims, when groups like this pop up, always go to your students of knowledge or to your scholars and ask questions. Get their fatwa or get their knowledge on that subject before you act. Now, granted, when you're wiped out and your village is wiped out and a mujahideen group comes and tell you you need to leave and come with us, because we know that the enemy will wipe us out in one village, come back 3 or 4 days later to come back to see if anyone came back to get their stuff, their belongings, and so forth. And then they continue. We know this has been the pattern. We know that. We saw this in Burkina Faso in particular when they wiped out 500. They came into the security forces came in with the Russians and they had a 2-day killing spree, right? They waited back in the forest and their spies looked, they said, hey, they came back, and then they wiped out the rest. They killed over 500. That's right. See, very interesting and very deadly. We have to be very careful. That's mine when we moved around. Okay, I want to, maybe you got another topic, my dear sister, because I'm not understanding. That's mine. We moved around. Oh, okay. You talk about your DNA. Yes, my mother is in that category as well, because I have Amazigh from Morocco on my mother's side as well. My sister, when she did her DNA, I don't show as much Amazigh, but when my sister gave me her results, I saw upwards 25% of Amazigh. See, and my mother died from a disease that's prevalent in Morocco. I mean, still killing people today, and it's a big, prominent disease. It's called sarcoidosis. My mother died of that disease. Okay, we got a couple more here. We got our brothers here. Says the Fulani and some were one in Egypt, but they separated. Fulani, Libya, almost best. Yes, they separated, and this is why we have. Yes, and we have. If you notice something, the Fulani dialect, is it one? No, there's a few. There's a Sudani Fulani dialect, isn't it? You notice that? It's running Sudan, part of Chad, Ethiopia, Eritrea, right? And into some parts, even in Tanzania, they speak the Sudani Fulani dialect. So it's not only one dialect of the fuller language. There's many dialects because we begin to move and cross and move. And then we start to marry with the women in the areas that we went to. So that changed the language up quite a bit. See, and I told you about this Messina Fulani dialect. Anyone who has knowledge about this, I had one brother wrote me one time. He gave me a good lesson about this particular dialect. It's very interesting. And this dialect was used in the Messina sultanates. But between the 1400s and the 1800s, what do you think the lingua franca was? It was not Fulani. It was second. Arabic was. Again, brothers and sisters, to show you that the Fulani people were very powerful when it comes to Islam and languages, because we had Arabic as our official languages in many of our sultanates from the 1400s to the 1800s. That's right. And again, brothers and sisters, Arabic is not a Tubab language. It's African, Asian, we call it Afro-Asiatic language, because Ge'ez, Amharic from the east is related to this language as well. That's right. See, so I just want to give you that tidbit of information there and whatnot, because we are a verse people. And again, you know, I'm giving you facts as I see it. And I'll get into another segment where I talk about Miyate Allah. I will talk about that because we have to talk about this, because this is important, because there's things happening that we have to look at. Yes, thank you, my dear brother. You know, I get analysis from YouTube. I have a lot of people who glance through and they won't subscribe. And human beings are human beings regardless of what they are. But I would greatly appreciate many, if you do pass this on, that they will subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to pay me anything. You just click the button. If you agree with some of the videos, we understand, but you support your brother, because our network is very weak. We have a very weak network. When you look at the Mexicans, they have a strong network. You look at the Chinese, they support the Chinese. The Japanese, they support their brothers. But we as African people, we have a tendency not to do the same thing. You know, because there's a lot of differences and so forth, especially on the continent. We saw, yeah, man, he's full of. No. I if he was Hausa, I was supporting. Or another would say, well, yeah, he's full of, and I don't like the full of people, so I can't support him. We shouldn't be like that, because knowledge is knowledge. I'm getting something from the Quran and the Sunnah. It has nothing to do with the color of my skin or what ethnic group I come from. It doesn't, see, and whatnot. It doesn't come from that. So we should, support one another. Like I told you here a couple of days ago, we had a brother from Texas there in United States. He's got a beautiful African station. He don't have many people to subscribe to him. People come to view his thing and they won't subscribe. But this brother's given those, especially in the West, a good education for us Africa, because they're ignorant in the West. They're ignorant, still ignorant about Africa. They are. And they should be brought up to speed. And our brother here is doing a good job. He's giving elementary classes on the fundamentals of African history. This is needed for most people who do not know. And we even have Africans who don't know. We have Fulani people too who do not understand their history. I know that because what they have said to me. Now, I told you about some of the wars I had with one group in this chat. This one sister in particular who claimed she was an educator. When she told me some things that was so bizarre, I could not believe it. She said I was ignorant and stupid. I had no education. I mean, sometimes women can be. And she went off on me. So we understand that. So, education is power. And when you have it, you pass this on. This is what I'm doing now. I'm an elder. I'm trying to pass on the knowledge, trying to give you guys something to think about, because you should put Africa in your heart. Because this place here is going to be an economic power one these days. And it's going to be an Islamic power as well. It's coming. And so you should understand its history. And those who live in the West, whatever your nationality is, I'm not talking about African American. No. The minute you do your DNA, you African Americans there, and you find out that you should be saying full of American. If you find out you are Hausa, you say Hausa American. Stop this African American. It's too vague. You tell what you are. Oh, I'm Bambara. I'm Bambara American, because that's where your ancestors. You honor them by giving this designation. If you got 5 different ethnic groups, pick one. Pick one and run with that. Okay? If you Tuareg, you say, hey, I'm Tuareg American, because you honor those who came before you, because they especially going to the West, because they were taken as slaves. Do you know what that means? The hardships that they had to endure. And we are from that lineage. We honor them by now saying, hey, I know my great-great-grandfather, my great-great-grandmother was Fulani. See, so I took that designation. I take it proudly. So I'm no longer African American. I'm Fulani American, but I'm African, because I live here in Africa. So I'm African, and that's the bottom line. But I'm full of, and that's my ethnic group. I'm proud of that. Very, very proud of that. Okay, my brothers and sisters, thank you one and all for showing up today. My dear sister Leslie. I haven't had too many sisters appear on the show before, but I'm very honored that we had a sister come on today, and all you other brothers as well. Giallo, thank you very much. And my brother HD, he always appear, and he came. And today we had who else? We had another brother here today too. I don't see his. I thought I can't think. I don't see him. I thought he was in the chat. But anyway, those who appear in the future, I'm hoping that, did you like this and you get others to subscribe? I really greatly appreciate this. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I got to get ready for Salat al-Maghrib. It's coming very shortly here. Okay, salam alaikum, rahmatullahi